hopefully we will appear online. So hopefully this should be live. I am going to wait to see if anyone will tell me if we are. And in fact, I can check on YouTube. But obviously, we're here for A Little Trickerie with Rosanna Pike, who is with us now. So
hello.
Let me just check on YouTube itself, Rosanna, and then we'll know whether we are indeed live. Let's hope so. So I'm just clicking on this now. Ah, Hilary, thank you. I had no idea, actually. I was thinking, oh no, this isn't working. And Hilary, thank you for your question. I've got it written down. Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so people are joining now. We'll just give them a little time. Actually, me and Rosanna were just talking, and I was kind of lost track of time. And I was thinking, okay, we best get stuck in. Rosanna, have you ever done a YouTube live before?
No, I haven't. I've never done it. So this is all new, but it's quite good that you can't see who else is on, or it might intimidate me.
Did you do many bookshop events for the
yeah, I did do quite a few things for promotion, and we did like a pre I don't know what you'd call it, publication tour of some of the bookshops along Tibbs route.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really nice, actually, with my editor and my editor's assistant. And yeah, so you just got to know some of the booksellers. It was really nice.
Oh, that's lovely. And I can see people are joining. We've got people from Denmark. We've got someone from Jersey Shore. I think that we should always have a winner for the most exotic location. Loch Lomond, very romantic. So yeah, if people want to introduce themselves, if you ask questions in the chat, I will try and field them to Rosanna. But we've already had, without surprise, quite a lot of questions. So I will do my very best. And also, we were just talking now, and there are a couple of topics I want to dive into regarding A Little Trickerie and Rosanna's writing journey. And Rosanna, we were talking about your journey with Curtis Brown Creative into getting your writing going. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how you started with Curtis Brown Creative and where that journey led you, and then how that then went on into A Little Trickerie.
Yeah, so I did the 3-month course. I think you can do a longer one, and you can do an online one. There's lots of different ones, but I did the 3-month in-person course. And our tutor was Charlotte Mendelsohn, who's obviously amazing and was just sort of the best kind of tutor to have, because she really kept everyone in line. And you go like twice, I think it was twice a week, and you sort of workshop each other's work. I think there was about 15 people in the group, and it just kind of, I was working on a completely different manuscript at the time, but it just kind of kept me thinking, okay, this is achievable. There was a real sense of purpose there, because it's at a literary agency. So you kind of think, okay, sort of the sheen of literary agents is slightly broken down, because they're right there, and maybe this is achievable. You sort of start to meet them. And also it's just other people looking at your work, and you thinking, hearing their opinions and their ideas, it's so invaluable, because you'll never have that sort of, again, when you've got an agent, you've got another opinion, but to have sort of 15 people telling you how to improve something is really great.
So for those who don't know, so Curtis Brown is one of the major literary agencies, right, with a big office in London. I think they've got office in New York as well. And so they have a creative kind of writing mentoring course. Would that be fair to say, Rosanna?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I kind of missed the main points. Yes, that is exactly it.
And so, but were you just an avid reader, or had you been writing a long time, you know, in your spare time and just having documents in drawers? Or what was your kind of, what was the decision point for you to say, okay, I'm actually going to focus on that?
I think it's weird. I think I actually always knew that it's what I wanted to do, but I just never I didn't realize for a long time. But now I look back, it was always coming. It was always going to happen that I would want to write, because I've always been like a super voracious reader, but I think I probably didn't have the confidence to think, oh, I can write fiction and get it published. And I don't know, I just sort of thought there's a secret potion that I don't have, and you sort of have to know the right people, and you have to do the right things, and there's a bit of luck. But I actually don't think that's the case. I think it's just you have to really just persevere until you get there. I've actually forgotten the question because
that makes so much sense. And we were chatting before, me and Rosanna, and I said I've tried to write fiction before, and it's a real art form, obviously, and it's so difficult. And I can imagine that having that creative feedback is really, really important. A supportive group of writers, but then also the agents to tell you, the reality of what it will take to get published and what will be commercial, because ultimately you're going to need to sell books. So I was really interested in this Curtis Brown creative aspect of you becoming a writer. But it wasn't the manuscript that you started on at Curtis Brown Creative that actually ended up being A Little Trickerie, right? Did you jettison that and then move on?
Yes, well, I started the course at Curtis Brown, and one of the other people who organized the course sort of said, oh, let's all go around the table and say briefly what our book is about. And I said mine, and this woman who was really great, and she just said, someone's written that book already. And I was like, oh no. And then she said, it's called this, you should probably look it up, because someone has written it already. It was about like the King Henry VIII's cook.
Okay.
And she was right, someone had written it already. And so I sort of carried on with it for the course, sort of in the back of my mind, thinking, I really can't do this because it's been done. So I sort of half-heartedly carried on with it, but I sort of knew it wasn't going to be the one. But I think I had to write a few manuscripts for things to sort of learn what not to do.
Yeah.
Until I got to one that sort of clicked.
Yeah, it might have been a good thing. And then A Little Trickerie, such a unique story. You were telling me before the real history behind this. How did you stumble across this real history? And then how was this born, basically? What was the spark behind this, entirely unique novel?
Well, I was actually researching for something else. I was sort of, I can't remember what I was researching for, but I came across this story of this woman who faked a miracle in a church. And it was I actually came across the Wikipedia page. There's like 10 lines on her. She was called the Holy Maid of Leominster. And I just sort of thought, this is a way more fun story to write.
We should just say, Rosanna, Leominster is written Leo Minster.
Yes,
anyone who's not British.
And I did call it Leo Minster for quite a while before someone said it's not that.
Yeah.
So I came across it and read this little snippet of this true story, and I just thought, that's so funny. I'm definitely going to switch lanes and try and write her story.
Okay, and then some of the geographies in it we were talking about before, the Norfolk coastline, which is so evocative. And actually, I just put a YouTube video out yesterday, which is only 10 minutes long, but me and Agat, who has said hello from Frome, downstairs from Luke, in the chat. Me and Agat went up there because Agat was actually a very important event, a Mariah Carey concert. But me and Mona, our dog, went church hunting, and we walked that coastline. It's really evocative. I just wondered myself how you chose some of these geographies, and that's obviously where two of the main characters, Tib and Ivo, meet, right? Yeah, could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I knew that we had to end up in Leominster because that's where she performed this miracle and, you know, pretended to be the angel. But I wanted her to travel because I had, by this point, I had done some digging with the character, and I knew I wanted her to be super kind of vulnerable. And so I knew she was going to be homeless, but it was just where she started. And so we often go to Norfolk on holiday, and I just feel like I know it really well, and I really love the scenery, and there's something quite kind of exposing about the beaches there.
Yeah.
And I just remember walking along. There's a really nice walk in somewhere called Burnham Overy Staithe. It's like a very long walk, and then you end up in the sand dunes. And I just remember thinking, this is really perfect for where she should begin. So it was kind of, I wanted to kind of write what I knew.
I feel like that. Well, that's really good advice, isn't it? Always write what you know. But I've read a book called Imperial Mud before by James Boyce, which is all about the kind of the fens and those vast storm-absorbing wilds. And I can't imagine what it would have been like in the late medieval times. But obviously, when the main characters meet, they're homeless, they're vagabonds, and they're basically living off the land, right? And they're making it work for them, as I think a lot of people did to a certain extent, even though they were probably assimilated in villages and manors. And actually, we had some questions on this point. So one of them was, so this is by Arja, 1945. So what research had the author done into the background of people like the young girl who were regarded as vagabonds? So these people who are kind of outside the system. Had this been something that you looked into, or was it a great act of imagination on your part?
It was kind of both. I did do lots of very niche research and ordering some really weird and wonderful books on Amazon that that were kind of specifically what I needed to know. I think I'm quite always interested in the kind of fringes of society and people who don't quite fit the mold. And I did do quite a lot of studying on that kind of thing during university when I studied English. I was always interested in, rather than the royalty, this sort of the opposite of that. So it kind of felt relatively safe to write in that kind of sphere. But yes, there was lots of niche research.
Oh, I think we may have lost Rosanna. Let's just see if we can get her back. By the way, I'm sure we'll get her back. If you have questions,
hi, Rosanna. You're back.
Oh, did I go? Well, anyway, we're back. I think we're back. I was just saying, if people have questions that they want to ask in the chat, then do that, and I'll field those to Rosanna once we're back up and running.
I think we're back. It's quite stormy here, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, there's lots of electrical storms here in England, so do give us a little bit of leeway. So on that, I was just saying, if people have questions that they want to field to you, they can put them in the chat. I've got a whole book of questions here from readers, Rosanna. So I'm going to try and do everyone justice and get through them. So Pilgrim Robert UK asked, and I think this is really interesting for aspiring readers in general, writers, is what aspect did you find most challenging when writing the book?
Oh, that is really, really hard question. I think I found an ending really hard, and I really kind of agonized over the ending because I had two written. And I
That's interesting.
just couldn't decide. I wanted to kind of go with this sort of fact versus fiction, kind of sensational versus reality, and create an ending that sort of went with that vein of being quite kind of, yeah, sensational and kind of, I don't know, unexpected, a bit like the hoax itself.
Yeah.
And then the possibility of, is this real or is this not? Is this like a heaven because she's an angel, so she's gone to heaven, kind of thing? So that was my sort of thoughts with the ending, but I found it really hard to pick because I was thinking, should I sort of not be so out there and go a bit more, possibly a little bit more realistic or a bit more open-ended? Like, I feel like it's quite fashionable now to be like, are we, aren't we? Like a bit less of a just straight happy ending, and more, a lot of the books I read seem to be a lot more just, yeah, sort of open-ended. So I really agonized over that.
And you wanted to kind of avoid that ambiguity. I guess it's quite cool to be ambiguous, right? To just,
yeah, I think it is quite cool, and I probably didn't choose the cooler way, but I just thought, after all they've been through, I wanted it to be a happy ending, because
yeah,
I often want a happy ending, but also I wanted to give the suggestion that maybe this is another kind of element of dreaming versus reality kind of thing.
and that makes me think, in terms of being a writer, did you always see yourself writing historical fiction? And were there authors that have really inspired you, which you just loved, reading already?
I definitely thought it felt like, I don't know, I have bad imposter syndrome, and I think I thought I wanted to play it safe, and I felt much more confident writing historical, probably because I've read a lot of historical, and maybe because it feels more kind of exposing in a way to write the contemporary. You sort of, I feel like you might judge the characters more harshly because they're sort of your contemporaries. So it felt very natural to write historical, but I definitely don't want to always write historical. I would quite like to write something contemporary next, not the next book because that's already done, but after that.
Well, when I did my video yesterday, I actually visited a church called Little Snoring in Norfolk, because what I was thinking was, so in the book, and most people who are watching this will have read the book. The main characters at the start, Tib and Ivo, and Tib and her mum before that, go into churches to kind of thieve what they can, which sounds like a harsh word because they're surviving at the time. And I was thinking of it, I wanted to showcase what these places originally would have looked like, and the kind of the chancel doors which they would have snuck into. Had you explored these places before, Rosanna? Is this something that's like particularly interesting to you? But you might not know, but I absolutely love the book.
I do really like looking at I really like visiting churches and looking at the history of it. I'm really super interested generally in religion. I just have always found it really, really interesting. And I watch a lot of the things I watch are kind of religious based kind of documentaries or things like that. So again, that felt very natural. But yeah, it has been. I actually went to the church in Leominster, and it's a really amazing one to look around. In it, they've got this thing called a ducking stool, and
the witch trials.
It's a bit, yeah. They did use them in witch trials, but they also just used them. Basically, it's like a wooden chair on like a wooden long plinth, and they would sort of, in the Tudor era, they would put it over a river and then dunk a woman if she was like a scold, if she was basically too outspoken.
Right.
as a way to kind of silence them. And actually, it was so interesting because I was already writing the second book, and there is a ducking stall in it. So that was a really good. That was a really interesting coincidence. But there was lots of really interesting artifacts in that church. It's a really good one to look around.
It's one I've never been to, and one that I will forevermore look out for now on my travels. If I can get there, I will do, keeping in mind the journeys of Tib and her retinue. On that, I think the most requested question, and somebody has written it in the chat here, how did Rosanna find Tib's unique voice? And someone else, so Hilary, who, thank you, was the first person on the live, said Tib's voice was so unique with such a vernacular style. What was the inspiration for the development of her voice? And I just wanted to echo that. Her voice is so unique, and I think that is one of the major strengths of the book. Did that come to you in kind of a thunderbolt? Do you think she'd kind of been hiding in the back of your mind, or was that something you worked on? Really interested in that, Rosanna.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a really annoying answer, but it did just kind of come to me as a kind of, yeah, as you say, like a thunderbolt. I think I just started writing it, and I didn't really have to kind of work on the voice. I definitely had to develop her character and the backstory loads. I did loads of kind of in-depth work on her relationship with her mother and everything that had happened in her life. And that took me a long time to kind of flesh out so that she was a kind of fully rounded character. But the voice, it just was there. It's like I didn't really have to work for it. It was just sort of there on a plate for me.
Sorry, Rosanna, did you have any hesitation over that voice? Because she's quite, forthright. There's a lot of swearing. There's kind of, it's quite, vivid. Did you ever kind of feel, oh, is this too much, or did you have that confidence in the sort of style?
No, I actually think I was quite sort of, maybe I was a bit gung-ho with it. I was like, well, this is the voice, this is it.
Yeah.
So no, and when I sent it out as a query to agents, it seemed to get a really good reception in terms of the voice. That seemed to be something, even if they passed on it, they would say, oh, but I really liked the unique voice. I think it was natural for me to use a unique voice, maybe because I really like reading. I love reading books with a really interesting voice. Like, have you read The Girl with the Louding Voice?
No, I haven't.
By Abby Dare. I loved that one. And even things like Eleanor Oliphant that are really just voicey, I really like it. I used to do a lot of acting as sort of a child and an adolescent, so maybe that was part of it, that it feels like very, I don't know, focused on how something sounds. Like, I really like accents. And
I think we might have to get a kind of three novels recommended by Rosanna Pike that we could get into Sherlock Pages maybe next month or something like that.
Yeah,
that would be really good. And somebody is sending me to Leominster as well. They said, please capture the church in one of your videos, Luke, if you ever get there in your travels. So I'll have to do that. Someone else has commented, I love the comment about dreams. Your book teases out the Shakespearean themes of the power of imagination to create reality in the context of the intersection of theatre and the miraculous. And there is such a great deal of, the high drama of
so nice.
Church. Oh no, the questions are always brilliant. Like last time I was kind of taken aback by how good people's questions were. So we will dive back into them. And actually, so there's, I hope I've written this right down right. So there's Kyla X Xmas who says, I loved Ambrose, the patchwork man, in quotation marks. I'm guessing it's some kind of birthmark or vitiligo he has, but Tib describes him as something beautiful, and there's an exclamation mark. And I think so Kyla's really kind of commenting on how beautiful Ambrose seems to Tib. This is something that could be viewed as a disfigurement, but she's made him exceptionally unique and special. Was his character based on anyone Rosanna knows? I'm so interested in his backstory. So yes, Ambrose, Rosanna.
He came to me. No, he's not based on anyone I know. But I really liked sort of going down the theme of having sort of like a found family of people that didn't fit the mold and didn't fit in. But no, he wasn't based on anyone I particularly know. It was more just the idea of sort of how people are perceived, and I knew that with Tib looking like she does, like almost like translucent kind of thing, I wanted to have sort of the opposite, and for that to be sort of like, I don't know what the word is, like how people can be drawn to each other, like when they're so different.
Yeah, because if you think about it, at the end of the novel, everyone is in brutal terms an outlier from, you know, that early Tudor society. You've got Tib being a vagabond, looking how she does. You've got Ambrose, obviously, with his kind of purple colouring, and then you've got the issue of homosexuality with Flavio and with Ivo. I did wonder, did you do research into kind of sexuality and attitudes towards sexuality in early Tudor society as part of the kind of the backstory for the book?
Yeah, I did, and I spoke to a really amazing lecturer at UCL called Dr. Bob Mills, and he was sending me amazing answers. He was so knowledgeable about it, and it was sort of what really struck me was this era where any type of sex outside of procreation was thought to be so awful, and it was quite interesting when you start looking up words like sodomy, because it's sort of a different how we would think of it today. It was more all sex acts that aren't for procreation sort of come under that umbrella. So yes, there was I learned loads, actually. It was really interesting, but I wanted to kind of explore how that would have been at the time, and so to keep it very sort of close to the reader, because often it can feel like a different world, but I was trying to bring history sort of right to the forefront.
Well, I think history is often told in the history books through the kind of the main characters in terms of, you know, kings and queens and aristocrats and things. The really interesting thing about Little Trickerie is that it looks at those who are outliers, and that's not to say that the identity of those, you know, kind of elite figures can't absorb and take into account, you know, for example, you know, we've had kings that were clearly homosexual, but that's kind of was buried at the time. But I think the interesting thing is about Little Trickerie is it asks us to think about what the fabric of society really looked and what it really felt like to live in those times, because we know that those people were there, even though
exactly
they couldn't fully express those identities at the time.
Yeah, and they probably didn't even have the vocabulary to do that because it was just sort of unheard of. But I wanted to kind of make early modern characters kind of emotionally accessible to a modern reader.
Yeah.
And I wanted the themes to be quite contemporary. So that was sort of a purposeful way of looking at it.
No, I definitely think that was realised. And so took Lavinia, I hope I've written these down wrong. Right. Sorry, I'm sorry if they're wrong. So I loved how open-minded Tib was. And a rarity, I should imagine, in Tudor times. Was this aspect of her personality particularly important to Rosanna? And Tib is the kind of the driving force behind the novel, right? And she must hold a special place in your heart, Rosanna. I'm just wondering, if you could respond to that question, but almost expand a little bit more on what Tib means to you as well.
Oh yeah, I feel like I've lived inside her head for a couple of years now. I just feel like I would want to be her friend. Like I think she's such a interesting mix of being really naive and very innocent, and then having actually seen loads of things she shouldn't have seen, and she's sort of grown up on the fringes of society, spending all her time with her mother, who is mentally really unwell, and so her whole psyche's been kind of shaped in a very like interesting and often quite a cloistered way. So she just has a really wonderful way of looking at the world, because she hasn't got all the kind of prejudices of society because she hasn't lived in it. So she's quite, yeah, as you say, open-minded, and she isn't kind of tarnished with all the judgment that other people have. So she's quite like she's sort of a double-sided coin. She's on the one hand very worldly wise, and then also extremely kind of open-minded and innocent.
Well, I asked my colleague Kerry, people who visited Sherlock and Pages may have met, because she read the book before I had, and I said, "What would you say the book's about, Kerry?" And she said, "Well, I feel like it was a kind of deals with trauma and kind of coping and kind of coming to terms with trauma to the extent that we can, and as well as bringing the outliers of society into our kind of imagination, our historical imagination." I think we've all been through, the kind of collective trauma of COVID and kind of coming out of that, and I think an increased awareness of mental health and sharing mental health stories and being kind of open with each other. But I think that in historical fiction and in history, when we look back in general, it's still a totally underappreciated aspect of humanity, that we think about people's mental health. And what she'd been through was just, it's awful in so many terms. And I just wondered if that was something that was kind of conscious, or it kind of just came with the story of Tib and her mother, and it's something you worked on.
I think it was a bit of both. It was something I worked on, but it's something I definitely wanted to. I was focused on from the beginning, because I think from having studied lots of this period at university, I was really always surprised when you read kind of historical books. There's lots of statistics about terrible things happening, like infant deaths. They'll say, this percent died before they were 5, like horrendous things. But because it's like 500 years ago, you think it's sort of, there's a big sort of gap between us and that, and you don't feel the emotions that you would feel if that was the case today. And I kind of wanted to allow a reader to feel how that would have felt at the time, but sort of from a modern standpoint, if that makes sense. I'm not really making sense, but
no, it makes total
rather than
sense
it be like a statistic on a page, to actually see that it would have felt like losing a baby would have felt exactly the same today then as it would today.
Well, and I think visiting those locations, whether that be a physical visit or through literature, is so important. When I do book talks, there's a church actually in Norfolk, in the Norfolk Broads, called Ranworth, and they have a rood screen. So you talk about rood screens a lot in A Little Trickerie, which I particularly appreciate. the word rude means cross in Saxon, in, well, Old English. So it would have been used in Saxon times. I'm saying this not to you, Rosanna, to the collected audience. And so this is what separated, you know, the holiest of holies in the chancel from the nave where the people would have been. But on that rood screen at Ranworth, I think it's St. Helens at Ranworth, is a kind of a lady chapel part of it. And there's four female saints on there, including Margaret of Antioch. And she would have been prayed to by women who were going through childbirth. And you can actually see where women would have walked across the marshy Norfolk Broads and kind of knelt down and prayed. And it was only through seeing that, Rosanna, that I kind of got this visceral feeling, and I'm a man, I can't really get there, but of the vulnerability, you know, of people in the past. And it's a very special thing, you know. So I think that's one of the takeaways from that book. And you were saying that this miracle, this performance that happened, is something that really happened, right?
Yeah. So I tried to keep the truthful elements in the book. Not all of them. I did change the ending. But things like this woman, Elizabeth, she really did use the hair from her own head to pull up the bread from the mass. And as you say, it was really people were so superstitious, and there was everyone was sort of kept in the dark, and everything was in Latin, and there was bells and whistles, and everyone was sort of just doing as they were told in order to get to heaven. And I just thought that is so, the image of it, of people watching and really truly believing.
So I had this idea of her with her sort of hand in and a little finger around her head, going like this, bringing the bread up. So that's documented historically.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is. And it was some really strange books that I found. There wasn't loads about her, but I've cobbled together sort of what I found to be everything there was. And also Margaret Beaufort really did come with her committee to sort of call out all the people that were faking miracles, because she wasn't the only one. There were lots of other people doing it, but it was mostly the priests. That
I was fascinated by that when we were talking beforehand. So Margaret Beaufort, famously pious, right? As you kind of put into the book. And so she was going around the country trying to kind of myth bust in a way.
Yeah, she had like a committee that were basically trying to stop all these fake miracles from happening. And she found this woman, and she found her with lots of like bones and meat bones and excrement as well. And she said that the smell had no saintly savor, which I've kept in the book.
Wow.
So there were a few like very specific things, but as I say, I did take some license, because in reality she was found to be having an affair with the priest, but I kind of thought blaming everything on kind of sexual appetite was very convenient. So who's to say if that was really why? They could have used that as an excuse. You never know what they were really doing. Anyway, they were both put in the stocks, and that was the punishment. So I did change the ending.
That doesn't seem so bad then. A lot of people were, I think some people I think found the ending too good to be true, a few, but most people were really, really, I think they desperately wanted a happy ending. I think they really did. So, you know, and
I'm glad.
Being in Sherlock and Pages, being in the bookshop, you can never please everyone, and there's no book for everyone. But I think the consensus opinion was that people were just desperate for a book to have a good ending, and they were rooting for Team Tib and Team Ivo all the way. There's some nice comments. Somebody, and I'm not surprised, said that the book had me in tears for sadness and with laughter and love. And I definitely laughed out loud.
Oh, good.
At times, but it sounds, because I've struggled. So, okay, let me rephrase that. We've sold the book aplenty in the shop, and I have no difficulty selling it in the shop, but I struggle to describe its feeling because it's such a traumatic book in some ways. And you say that to people right now, and they're like, "No, I'm out. I don't want
Yeah.
right now. I've got enough of it in the news, etc." But that's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying, no. There are really, really difficult themes, but there's actually a lot of love there as well. There's a lot of connection and bonding. Going back to what you were saying before, Rosanna, just so that we can finish out that conversation, there is some inspiration for the main trickery, right? In terms of, I think it's Tib sees another priest running a bit of a ruse with a Virgin Mary statue and some milk. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Was that something from your imagination, or is that something that you'd read about as well, just out of interest?
Well, you know what? I can't actually completely remember, but I read about loads of different miracles. There were lots sort of like that, with like sort of fake lifting up water from a well and saying it was holy water. I can't remember. I think I might have made up the milk one. I can't remember. There was so much very like intricate, weird research. I can't completely remember, but I probably just sort of made that one up. I was really interested as well in these sort of relics ideas, because I went to Bruges. What's it called again? Yeah, Bruges. It was Bruges, and we stood in line. I don't know if you've been, and you can see like a relic of. There's like a fingernail of someone. I can't remember who.
I've never been to Bruges, but I've seen many kind of medieval relics.
Yeah. So we waited in line. Yeah, I'm not very religious at all, but me and my husband were there, and we were like, well, everyone's waiting in line and it seems like a tourist thing. And you wait in line, and then you pay some money and you go and look at this. I think it was like a nail or something of maybe Jesus or maybe Joseph. I'm not sure. But I just remember thinking, like, it's very, very like believable. I'm not particularly religious, and they've got me thinking, right, I need to pay the money and see the nail. Like, it's so kind of catching.
Yeah. I think probably the most strong feeling I've had around that is going to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, and so my faith is kind of an I'm not clear myself, basically, and I would say that going there, people with such religious feeling, and you're in amongst that crowd, it is very, 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 very intense in Jerusalem. When I visited, like sort of maybe a decade ago, that was so intense. So yeah, I think it's almost impossible for us to kind of center ourselves in what it would have been like in late medieval England. Right. So I'm just going to get back to the questions. I should have ticked off which ones I've done and which ones I hadn't. Someone asked here, so Dick OCF7 asked, what inspired the book in the first place? It's such a fascinating story that I'd love to know what the spark was. And I don't know if we've actually covered that. We've got you doing this research right into these topics, but there must have been, how did you come across this Wikipedia page? Why are you on these Wikipedia pages about miracles in Leinster and such things, Rosanna?
I can't remember. I was researching for something else. I was trying to write a different novel, and I somehow ended up on the Holy Maid of Leinster Wikipedia page, which is like 10 lines long. And I would love to remember what I was trying to look up when I came across it, but I went down this rabbit hole and I ended up on it, and I just remember thinking, this is way more fun. I want to write that story instead, because that's so it deserves to be heard, and it's so unusual.
And then it wasn't a question then, and you just went with it. And
yeah, and it was very quick to write, actually. It took me a long time to then sort of flesh it out and edit, but the first draft was quite kind of, it was really enjoyable to write compared to what I'd been writing before, and I'd been really laboring it, and it was all quite sort of tricky and
Yeah, it feels like that when you read it as well. I can imagine it coming to you as difficult as it is relatively quickly. You know, it feels like you're moving through it. And what was the process like of getting it published? Obviously, you've got some connections now through Curtis Brown Creative. Do you have any advice for aspiring writers here?
Oh, my advice. Oh, well, what was the first thing you said?
Oh, yeah. What was your process like?
The process
From
was
manuscript to publishing, and then would you have any tips for people?
so I finished the manuscript, and I had met an agent at Curtis Brown who said she might be interested. So I sent it to her, and I'd sent it to quite a few other people at the same time. I think they say send it to 10 at once and then stop, in case lots of people have the same feedback, and then you can actually change it and try again. But I think I probably sent it to more than 10. And then I sent it to this one person at Curtis Brown who said, oh, I don't want it, but I know who'd really want it. She's called Katie, who's now my agent. So I sent it to her, and Katie said, yes, let's meet. And she sent a really lovely email, and we met, and she's just great. She's the best agent. So that bit was kind of done. And then we didn't work on it for that long. We worked on it for maybe 3 months, and then she sold it, but it was on submission for about 8 weeks. So it wasn't kind of like, super quick. I was thinking, oh no, it's not going to sell. But then we had a few people interested. So yeah, that was it. I think it's just so like right place, right time, isn't it? Sort of.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, unique and vivid. And I think that's very difficult to realize. And you should be, well, recognize that. And this is its first Christmas. So, right, I apologize for people. I'm in retail and I'm thinking about Christmas.
Yeah.
September. But this will be its first Christmas as a paperback, right?
Yes, exactly.
Is that correct? So if everyone who has read this, please tell people about it, because
please,
I'd love to see this like kind of rocketing up the sales list, because I think it is a really unique and interesting work, and it raises a lot of questions. We're going to gather in Frome as a small group of the readers here to discuss it, and I think it will be just super interesting. I've seen a question in the chat come up, which I think is brilliant. So obviously Tib finds her family in I don't know how to describe it, sort of a roaming set of players.
Yes,
who go across the country performing in various markets and kind of town squares. And somebody has written, thinking of the medieval mystery and cycle plays, did you get some ideas from the typical costumes of characters? So, these ideas of the mystery plays in late medieval England, did they feed into this set of players, or where did that idea come from?
I was looking at different traveling players, because this was quite a kind of key form of entertainment at the time. And there's loads of information on it, and I sort of went down lots more rabbit burrows trying to find out information. I was just interested in the idea that the sort of general public were very obsessed with kind of freaks and that kind of element. So I wanted to kind of focus on that. And then when Tib when they go to the big sort of country house about halfway through the novel, and they all are dancing on the table, and they're performing a kind of a play about virtues and vices. That was an interesting bit of research that I did, and I did have some help from a lecturer again.
Wow.
It just seemed like people were very, very keen to show good and bad, very black and white, in very black and white ways.
I'm so glad we've teased this out, Rosanna, and I think it's really interesting how much, kind of or the research that's gone into it, but the kind of real world scenarios that have sparked these great leaps of imagination. Because reading it, it feels like such a work of imagination in the best of senses. But to hear about, speaking to certain academics and the research that you've done just adds to the strength of it for me, kind of in a big way. And I think the more we talk about that, the better. I do just want to get through the questions because I'm noticing the time. We've not got long. So one of the questions here, which is quite specific, is where did the author get the name Ivo? It's often used in Czechia, where I'm from, and other Slavic countries, but I had no idea it could appear in England in Tudor times. It was a real surprise. So yeah, just wondered if you had any inspiration for Ivo.
Oh, well, yeah, I just, there was a lot of research into popular Tudor names, and they generally stayed the same, with different introductions of names that then would last quite a few years. And I generally like sort of looking up names anyway. I've got 2 babies at the moment, and we did a lot of like going around the houses with names. And so that was, I really liked picking the names, but Ivo was kind of, it was definitely up there as a possible Tudor boy's name, but it was often like, I don't know what the word is when it's like a form of another name. And so I wanted to choose a name that wasn't super common, like Thomas or Henry or Richard or whatever. And so it was sort of just on the edge, a bit like
it's interesting how these things come in cycles, right? And
yeah,
Ivo's not so heard now or not so popular. I didn't know any Ivos, but maybe it'll come back. Maybe you will.
Well, I have a friend who's just had an Ivo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
From A Little Trickerie, or
no, not. She said it's not because of your book.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'm sure there'll be some out there along the way, because this book has definitely been very special to some people. I would say I could feel that in the comments that were coming through. Someone has written, why did you choose the present rather than the past tense for the narrative? And just before you answer that, Rosanna, then I think I'll just do one more rallying call for any final questions, and then we'll need to wrap up because I have one last question I want to ask.
Okay, sure.
So why did you choose the present rather than the past tense for the narrative?
Because I really wanted to make sure that the past feels accessible, and I really wanted to make these historical characters feel like one of us, like friends almost. So it was never a doubt in my mind that it had to be present tense, just to feel like you're there with them, and that you don't have this sort of gap created by the tense. It's a bit like, the books written by Ian Mortimer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Ian Mortimer that's like the Time Traveller's Guide.
Time Travelers.
Yeah,
he's gone through the whole of English history.
Exactly. Yeah, I love them, and he's just changed the tense. So basically, he's made the past into like a different country rather than a different time, and I found that a really clever and very simple idea, but it really works. And I just think it makes you feel much more kind of like enveloped within the setting.
I think, honestly, talking to you now has made me kind of appreciate the novel even more. There's like so much, there's so much intention behind it, even if it wasn't like explicitly conscious at the time of writing. I'm just wondering, just to kind of think about, hold on, there's a comment come in. I really like Tibbs' vivid and often funny 2-word hyphenated descriptors throughout. I did as well, actually. And this is another kind of event. It's just a very inventive and unique element of the book. Wondering what you are writing now and what you can say about that.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sort of desperately trying to write amidst childcare, which is proving really tricky, but I'm writing a lot in the evenings, which is the only time really. But I'm really liking writing again. I'm writing a book about it's not sort of anything related to Tib, but again it's based on a true story. It's about a woman called Jane Anger who in Elizabethan England, she wrote basically what was the first feminist text in English, because at the time in London there was lots of pamphlets being printed. It was a bit like Twitter. Everyone was kind of bitching about each other over pamphlets. And this woman, Jane Anger, which was probably a pseudonym, she wrote a really amazingly pithy and clever response to someone about this pamphlet. Was the one she was responding to was very typical. It was about how women were very sexually deviant and stupid and leading men astray. And she wrote this amazing response. And I just thought, imagine if she was replying to her husband, who she hates. So that's basically the story. It's this, it's about their marriage, and it's about her secretly writing these pamphlets, and her husband can't know. And yeah, it's just been so freeing to write. It was really, really hard not to write in Tib's voice at the beginning.
I'm sure, yeah.
And I just kept going back into it, and I was thinking, oh no, I need to develop a new voice. It did come eventually. It wasn't as sort of organic as Tib's, because she was just like stuck in my head. And she's very different to Tib because she's very well educated, and she's a whole different ball game. But it's been really nice to kind of live inside someone else's head.
Well, I've got admiration for that on so many levels. I know that I'm imagining the day already when we get our daily deliveries of books into the shop, and we have the first hardback of this book, because my colleague Kerry will be over the moon to read about one of the first feminist texts in our history. She will absolutely love that. Somebody has written an interesting comment, which I actually would love to see in more books. Enjoy your next chapter. Great handle says. It would be so great if at the end of historical fiction books were included all the reference sources that we used for inspiration or detail. But I definitely think that some of that would add to A Little Trickerie for sure. I think that would be really, really interesting.
And some books do. I remember getting to the end of The Miniaturist, and that had loads of information in. And also, have you read Tulip Fever?
No.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, we're going to do this email.
Tulip Fever.
You don't mind.
I loved it. But at the end of that, there was loads of, because that's based on, like, it's set in, I can't remember, I think it's Amsterdam, I can't remember. But there was loads of information at the end of that. So some books do it. I don't know why all of them don't.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting, but we will all be willing you on. I know it's a long process and it's probably miles away from publication, but we will be watching out for it. And
Thank you.
who knows, maybe in a few years' time we can have you on again. Diane says Tulip Fever, loved it. So I'm definitely going to be researching this one now. I'm going to be in touch, Rosanna, because I would love to get your recommendations for historical fiction. That would be so interesting.
Oh, I'd love to give them. I love it.
But I'm sure I will be saying this on behalf of everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've got a busy family life. You're juggling so many balls, so we really, really appreciate it. And if everyone can do their best to spread the word about the works of Rosanna Pike, A Little Trickerie, and we can get it in our own little way rocking a little bit as we enter this important sales period for books, that would be great.
Thank you.
Rosanna, thank you.
Thanks
and this
so
will be
much.
This will be available, fingers crossed, for everyone to watch afterwards on YouTube.
Great. Oh, thank you for your support, and for everyone who tuned in, because it's so nice to kind of connect with readers, because I don't actually get loads of opportunities to do that. So it's really nice it's kind of weird and nice to hear people are actually reading it.
Oh, I always wish I could do a better job of kind of expressing the collective consciousness of people. But there was just such a lot of goodwill for Tib and the gang. So
that's so nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Right, I'm going to go and have the lasagna that I cooked earlier for
enjoy.
And we'll return to our evenings. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.